Good evening and welcome to Sportszone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Freeman, and we've got a lot of basketball to talk about. Before we get into college, we'll take a look at the NBA, and here to talk about the Dallas Mavericks with me is Jay Lathan and Sydney Johnson. Guys, let's go back a couple games ago. The Mavs played the reigning champions, the Denver Nuggets, and beat them 107-105. Guys, to beat the reigning champions, that's got to be hard. So, Jay, what did you think the Mavericks did well in that game?
We got to first and foremost talk about the selfless ball movement that was going around. I mean, Jason Kidd was really emphasizing that, and they had a big turnover issue. They actually cleaned that up. They had 22 assists to 11 turnovers right there. That was very major. And also, you got to talk about the rim running of the forwards with Derek Lively, Derek Jones Jr., and you want to mention as well, you want to talk about Daniel Gafford. They all did well with the ball, running the rim and having great hustle plays.
Right. Sydney, what about you? What did you think the Mavs did well in that game?
No, I absolutely agree with Jay. I think that the team as a collective whole worked well on moving the ball and making things happen offensively. Obviously, Kyrie and Luka both had great games, and that always helps when your star players are having a great game. But altogether, the team did what they needed to do to make the win and pull out on top.
And I know we talk about the Mavericks rebounding a lot, and before the trade deadline, it was a struggle. So, Jay, in this game, the Mavericks were able to they rebounded well, 60-37 over the Nuggets. How important was that rebounding in that game?
I mean, rebounding is huge. As we saw that last final shot, man, it came down to the very end. That's what kept them in this game. Still, interior defense is a problem. I feel like Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon had their way inside. I mean, a lot of times they ended up getting guarded by Kyrie under the rim. Why does that make sense? I don't know. But it really showed that the rebounding came down to the last second because the defense isn't good for this team, so they need those extra possessions to score as much as they can.
Right, and Sydney, what would you say the impact of the rebounding change for the Mavs has been?
No, yeah, I think that definitely they were a lot more active defensively. In this game specifically, they were all over where they needed to be to make the stops and make the bounds that they needed. I think that they definitely have had some mistakes in games in the past in the season this far, and it seems like they're making the necessary changes that they need to make to correct those mistakes.
And then, Jay, I noticed you mentioned some of the things the Mavericks have been struggling with, like their interior defense. In that Nuggets game, was there anything that you saw that caught your eye of what the Mavericks were struggling with that game?
Definitely. I mean, you had Michael Porter Jr., he went for 20. A lot of those were inside. He had a couple threes there. But then you also had Gordon go for 11 as well with 8 rebounds. I mean, these are major points that you have to control the inside as we start going through the West. I mean, you have countless forwards that are really dominant on the inside. I mean, you want to talk about AD and the Lakers. If they get in the playoff conversation, It's going to get serious. You're going to have to go through Jokic once again in the playoffs. They are the defending champs. And, I mean, it felt good to see that crazy freak left-handed hook shot from Kyrie. And, I mean, that's medicine for Jokic. I mean, he always just comes around. People say he hoops like he has slides on, and then at the last second, he just hits some ridiculous shot. It was good to see it happen to him, man. It felt good.
And, Sydney, what did you think the Mavs struggled with, despite the win?
Yeah, of course there are things defensively that they could tweak and always make things a little bit better. But for me personally, I would like to see more of the starting five or even the rest of the squad put up more points on the board. Of course, it's okay when you have your star players and you want them to be having a great game, but you can't always put your eggs in one basket, or I guess in this case two, to count on them to have a great game every time. So, you have some players putting up 8 points, 6 points here, but I would like to see the rest of the offense kind of get it together and get some more of those players some extra points on the board.
Can I add on to that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, interesting fact, in that game, outside of Luka and Kyrie, they went 0 for 13 from 3. That is atrocious. That is
abysmal.
Horrendous. That is bad.
Yeah, and lastly, for this game, did this game go how you guys expected it? I know for me, I'm a big Dallas fan, but I didn't think they would come out of this game with a W. Sydney, what did you think?
Honestly, no. I was surprised. I mean, I didn't think Dallas was going to get blown out, but they haven't had really a full healthy squad as often and haven't had as many reps on the court altogether as a team. So I think that I didn't really expect them to win, but I'm glad that they did.
And Jay?
Once again, I feel like this is a typical Mavericks game. You're going to have heavy leans on Luka and Kyrie, and due to the heavy offensive load they're bearing, their defense kind of just goes to the wayside, which kind of turns games into shootouts. And then at the very end, fortunately this time, Luka and Kyrie were hitting shots, which kept them close enough in this game, but it won't hold up in a playoff series, and they got to clean that up.
And then moving on to the next game, the Mavericks went up against the Spurs, an in-state rival, and won 113-107. Guys, this game was a little bit closer than I anticipated, but let's look at the positives before the negatives. Sydney, what did the Mavs do well in that game?
You know, I think that they took Sunday's game into account because Luka was not having a great game. I mean, even though he still scored in the double digits, his shots just were not falling, and I think that was very apparent. Everybody could tell. But the rest of the team did kind of step up and cover the slack offensively. They were still able to make plays and come out with the win. So I would say that they did what they needed to do in the event that one of their star players was having an off game.
Right, and Jalen?
I mean, Lively did a great job once again, getting 12 points, 5 rebounds. He did a good job there. I mean, you want to factor in Dante Exum. I mean, he had 16 points. He went 4 for 4 for 3. So it was good to see a little bit of depth, a little bit of variety there. Tim Hardaway Jr., I don't know what you're doing, but step it up if you're watching, man.
Yeah, I thought the Mavs, like Sydney, what you said, how Luka wasn't having his best game. The 3-ball wasn't there. But they scored 52 points in the paint, and a lot of that is thanks to Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, and some of these bench players. How important is this bench going to be for the Mavs as they get down to the last 20 games of the season?
Man, it's extremely important. Kind of how, as I was saying before, you can't always just count on your best 1 or 2 players to get the job done. You have to have those guys on the bench ready to step up and take off the slack and take that responsibility on them as well. So I think that this was kind of them showing that they can do that and they are capable of being a real contender this season.
And what are your thoughts, Jalen?
I mean, you got Kyrie, who's fasting right now, playing nearly 40 minutes. So, guys, the bench is going to be necessary as he's going through this season of fasting. So you're going to have to give him some rest somewhere because he's got to pick up the slack where Luka falls short. So the bench is very much going to be essential down the stretch.
Right, and like I mentioned earlier, this game, Mavericks only won by 6. I was expecting them to win by, maybe 20, 25, something like that. So what did y'all think the Mavericks struggled with? Jalen?
It was definitely transition defense, and you could see it. Like Kyrie was really starting to wear down on the back end of the game. And I mean, once again, he's fasting. He hasn't had a drink of water since who knows when. And this game really should have been a blowout. And it truly showed that with it being tight, how dependent they are on Luka.
Right, and Sydney?
No, I absolutely agree with Jay. I mean, they did come out with the win, but I mean, let's be honest, this game was not very pretty. I think the Spurs were up by 15 by the first quarter, and it was not looking good at all. But all in all, they were able to get it together and work offensively to come out with the win. So I guess that's all that matters for Dallas fans.
And those were some great wins for the Mavs. Moving on to their next game, they will be playing the Jazz. So what do you guys think the Mavericks need to work on before they take on the Jazz? Jay?
I feel like that, once again, that interior defense is going to be very crucial. As I mean, the last time they played them, Lauri Markkanen was really just scoring well on the inside. Also, they're going to have to learn to pass the ball around, distribute some of that scoring. Last time they played, they shot the ball pretty well in those 2 games. Well, in the first one, they were both blowouts, but that'll be essential.
Right, and looking at these 2 teams, the Mavericks, they're 7th in the West, and the Jazz, they're 12th in the West. Sydney, do you think that this will end up being a good game, or do you think it'll end up being like the last games where it'll be a blowout?
You know, I'm hoping that Dallas doesn't get blown out again. I think the last time that they had their matchup with these 2 teams, Kyrie had just came back from a 12-game hiatus from an injury, and Luka and Kyrie's chemistry isn't where it is now. So I think that the Mavs have a great chance of winning this game. It definitely shouldn't be a blowout. I really hope not. But as long as they're able to really kind of build off of that chemistry that they've been having, I mean, the Jazz has lost their past 3 games. So if they're able to kind of attack them while they're down and feed off of the chemistry that they've been having on the court their past couple of games, I think that we should be able to come out with the win.
Right, and before getting into more basketball, we will be taking a break as we look at UNT softball coming up after the break.
I'm here to rescue you.
Oh, my prince.
Não sou fácil.
This story is going to be awesome.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Hasbell, and I'm joining you here today in the Union Parking Garage. Today we're going to be going over how to drive safely in the parking garage. Let's go see. Oh my God! Oh my God! This girl just got hit by a car. Let's go see what happened. Ma'am, are you okay? Are you okay?
Did you see that lady hit me with a car?
Yeah, we did. I got it all on video.
Oh my God.
Let's go over here and talk about how we can prevent that.
Yeah, not the hospital.
Well, right now we're going to ask you a couple questions on how we can drive safely in the parking lot. What are ways that we can be aware of our surroundings?
Oh, we can look both ways.
Jenna, also, how about putting the distractions away?
Yes, just like our phones, turning our music down, and also not focusing on our passengers.
Where can you get information on how to get a parking pass?
Transportation.unt.edu.
If you park in a garage, make sure you pay on the app or look for further instructions on how you should pay.
And remember, no pass, no park. Let's all try to keep our mean green community safe.
Remember, we're all in this together.
Drive safe.
Good evening and welcome back to Sportszone. I've got Matthew Wagner and Sean Hunley here to talk about some UNT softball as they just went up against UTSA and took the series 2-1. We're going to take a look at game one first as UNT won 10-8. Bats were hot. So, Matthew, who played well?
No, I'm going to go with Michaela Smith. She played great, going 2 for 4, scoring 2 runs and 6 RBIs on the day. I mean, that's insane. I don't know, and I looked at it, that's not the record. The actual record is 8 RBIs, but, getting close to that, that's really impressive. And that, like you said, the bats were hot all game, and that's something that the UNT women's team is got to keep doing.
Right, and Sean, it's kind of like the Rangers. I mean, their bats are hot, 10 runs in one game. So who did you have as like your MVP of game one?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, I love Michaela Smith. I love that record. But I'm going to go with Kaylee Gamble. I mean, she had a 2-run home run. UTSA tied it late, and she broke that with the 2-run homer. I think that's her 3rd of the year. So, I mean, that's my star of the game.
Awesome. Yeah, I also had to go with Kaylee Gamble. Her numbers were so good. 2 at-bats, 3 runs, 2 RBIs, one of those hits being a home run. So now we're going to look at the flip side. We got to take a look at the pitching because for UTSA, their bats were hot as well. So Matthew, what did you think about the pitching?
I mean, they started off a little strong, but then they kind of broke down a little bit, right? I thought, Mackenzie Wagner, she kind of struggled a little bit, right? But luckily Skylar Savage came in and closed out the game for them with that win. So I think the pitching was a little strong at the beginning, but then they kind of broke down. But luckily they kind of regained that composure and shut them down late.
And Sean, what were your thoughts on the pitching?
I mean, not to mention that's her 25th career win. Absolutely all credit to her for coming in and kind of securing that win. The pitching was kind of up and down this weekend. I mean, everybody kind of struggled a little bit, but can't forget in game 2, whoever was that had those 13 strikeouts. Was that Skylar Savage?
No, that was actually Mackenzie Childers.
Well, that was Childers. Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
My apologies. But, I mean, up and down pitching this weekend, but, I mean, great those first 2 games for sure.
Yeah, and we already highlighted Kaylee Gamble, and we already highlighted Michaela Smith. But as a team, how did you think the hitting was, Matt?
No, they were great. I think that everyone kind of again came together, right? Even when they're down, right? They kind of bond together, and that's something teams that good teams do, right? When you're down like that, or if you're down, you kind of get you say, hey, listen, we're not out of this yet. And every time UNT's had to fight back, they fought back in a big way, and that's something that good teams do, and I think they're going to go far this season.
Right, and Sean?
Shout out to Morgan Medford. I mean, she went 4 for 8 for the weekend, and she had 3 runs scored and an RBI.
Right, and moving on to game 2, the Mean Green won 6-1. This was obviously better than game 1's performance. So who did you think stepped up for UNT in this second game?
No, we already highlighted her, Mackenzie Childers. She, that 13 strikeouts was absolutely crazy. It was a great game for her. I mean, only giving up 3 hits, allowing 1 run, only earned 1 earned run. That's awesome. That named actually got her the AAC Pitcher of the Week.
Right.
She 2 complete game wins, 26 strikeouts, 10.11 strikeouts over 7 innings, which actually at this point was leading the AAC,
right,
but not anymore, unfortunately. But again, that's one of the most impressive stat lines I've heard.
And then Sean, I gotta ask you, Childers, game 2, she pitched all 7 innings. How important is it going to be for the Mean Green, rotation to be able to fill all 7 innings going into, the heavier half of their conference play?
It's definitely important that, kind of all the pitchers are able to, say if one goes down, has a bad game, you're able to just be able to back up that player and come in, kind of come in relief. Like if you need Wagner or you need somebody else to come in, just kind of finish in that rough spot.
Right.
It's got to be consistent pitching. You can't have everybody's having a bad day, or this person's having a good day, and then somebody comes in and has a bad day. So it's definitely going to be consistency, especially down the
I have to
stretch.
agree with you, Sean, because I think it's just like the Rangers, right? Because we saw the Rangers rotation, where they were they were struggling a little bit, and they were struggling, but it's like good teams, they do struggle, but it's also a good thing that that they are struggling a little bit, because that means they become tougher as the year goes on, and they become better and better. So that's what the Rangers did at the end of the season. I think that's what the softball team can do at the end of the season.
And then moving on to the next game, the Mean Green lost 4-2, I believe. What caused that loss, Matt?
You can't win them all, right? Obviously you would love to win them all, but that's what the great thing about baseball or softball is anything softball related is like great teams obviously lose to worse teams, and that happens all the time. So obviously it's a little bit of a tough loss because it's a close loss, but things just weren't working out. The hitting wasn't working. UTSA brought in one of their better pitchers, and I thought that she closed the game down really well. And I think if they can do that, they just got to keep going.
Right, and Sean, what did you think about the performance?
It was definitely just a tough day at the office. I mean, we saw what happened with Mackenzie Childers, had a great game the day before, and then she comes in and, not so good of a game. So, I mean, and it wasn't just her, it was everybody. It's one of those, it's bad weather all weekend. Everybody, I'm sure, was tired, just ready to get back home. So you just have off days, and this is exactly what it was. But, it's not that big of a loss, not that big of a deal.
Right, and would you say there was any major thing that went wrong in the game, or do you think it was just a lull in their
couldn't score. I mean, that's the thing. You just couldn't score. You had some, tough day at the office for pitching. So, I mean, you just kind of combine those things with some tough weather out there. I mean, it's going to happen, but, you just pick yourself up and get back to work.
Right, and Matthew, what would you have to say? Did you think it was just one of those games?
Yeah, it was just one of those games. One thing, as a former baseball player myself, one thing that really irked coaches back when I played was runners in scoring position, right? Not scoring. And, shout out Roy Canan for that one. So, obviously, it was just one of those things where you got people on base, but then you just left them on. 2 outs, strike out. It's just one of those games. You just kind of have to put that in the back of your mind and move on.
Right, and moving on, UNT will go up against Tulsa, who's had a really great season. I mean, Tulsa is 19-8 overall. They are 5-1 in conference. And then just looking at some of their stats, 3.87 team ERA, 243 hits, and an on-base percentage of 39.2%. Guys, how hard is this Tulsa series going to be?
They're 7-2 at home and away. I mean, this team's good. I mean, they're 10-3 in the month of March. They've got some really good hitters, and they've got some really good pitchers. So the thing is, you're going to have to shut down their hitters. You got Mackenzie Denson, you got Imani Edwards, and Clara Skaggs. Those are their big three. They've got 435, 409, and a 392 batting average per individuals. So you shut down those three. That's going to be the biggest thing for the pitching side.
Yeah, I think for our hitting side, right? Tulsa's has been great. On a 3-game winning streak and coming off a huge 3-0 shutout to the number 4 ranked, now number 6 ranked OSU, and they're firing on cylinders right now. Their pitching has been lights out. It's been their bread and butter actually, with Annika Anderson leading the charge with 6-0 record, 42 strikeouts, only giving up 2 home runs on the entire year, which is tied for the lead in the. For them, so that's insane stat line. So if this UNT team wants to win, they got to hit the bats early.
And watch out for Kylie Nash too. She's got 35 strikeouts and a 2.72
yeah,
ERA.
It's going to be a tough series for sure.
Right, and what is the main battle of this game? Who's going to step up for Tulsa, and who do y'all have stepping up for UNT?
For UNT, I got to go back to Mackenzie Wagner, right? She's been struggling a little bit, but if this pitching for this UNT team can kind of battle back like we've talked about, this team can easily take 2 out of 3 game series. And I think if you're Tulsa, you're going to look to Annika Anderson. She's been their main squeeze, and I think that she's going to be able to shut down this team.
And Sean, what about your thoughts? Who do you think is going to step up?
I'm going to go back to Michaela Smith and Kaylee Gamble. I mean, those two it looks like your big hitters so far this weekend. They've got to step up and be your big hitters, especially against a really good team like Tulsa. Not to mention with the tough schedule they got coming down the pike. So you just got to be ready for it.
And then, what do the Mean Green need to improve on? I know we've talked about how in the last game their batting wasn't there, but pitching has kind of been a struggle. So what should be the focus point in this Tulsa series, Sean?
Pitching. Absolutely. I mean, you have to be consistent on pitching. You can't have one good game and then suffer 3 bad games. You've got to be consistent on your strikeouts. You got to make sure that nobody's getting on base and you're not giving up easy walks and little singles and doubles and flukes down the line.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. You know, it's like you can jump out to a 5-0 lead, and then your pitching kind of collapses, and now all of a sudden it's 7-5, you're losing. I think if the pitching can be rock solid, the hitting is going to follow through.
Well, the Friday game was a good test of that.
Right.
Exactly.
And then, so we got to look at this series. It's a great series. I recommend, everyone giving it a watch because this is going to be a great matchup, and I feel like it's going to be UNT's real in-conference test. Would y'all agree with that?
100%. I mean, they're 5-1 in conference play, right? But granted, the teams they've played haven't been as great in the conference. But still, I mean, this is going to be the real tough test for them. I cannot wait to see how it turns out.
And what about you, Sean? What do you think?
They got a tough schedule. I mean, and this is just, you want to compete, you got to beat teams like this. So, I mean, they got the 21st hardest schedule in the nation. So, I mean, here you go. Go out and win it.
Yeah. And very quickly, Sean, what is your series prediction?
I'm going to say UNT is going to win this series in a nail-biter. I'm going to say it's going to be a 2-1 series. I feel like they're going to lose one in there, but
yeah, I'm going to go two games out of the 3. I think they can do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And speaking of these series-like games, it is March, which means there's a tournament going on right now. So when we come back, we'll talk about some NCAA basketball.
What does Talents do?
So I'm the Vice President of External Relations for Talents. That means that I basically oversee all the external committees. Our external committees entail our Model A, it's a Mean Green Machine. So they bring it to football games especially, so every game it's kind of there, every home game. The Model A is like a symbol of UNT pride, and it's a big tradition that we are so lucky to uphold and maintain. When people look at it, they see it, and they're like, oh, that's the Mean Green Machine. There must be a game today or something to ramp up school spirit for basketball, softball, volleyball, any of those things. We have amazing teams, so we just want to show school spirit for them. Bonfire Committee, which is in charge of putting together the bonfire every year for homecoming. It's kind of just a whole semester-long process up until build week that we have to put together and oversee and make sure safety regulations are followed and risk management is taken care of. Cannon Crew, which oversees and takes care of the cannon. They fire it at games, they take it to special occasions.
Did you know you have access to video equipment like DVDs, video games, and cameras? That's right, you do. Come on down to Chilton Library and fulfill your media dream. Located on the bottom floor next to the student sculpture. Hope to see you there soon. Hey girl, you know you look good. I like the way you move and groove. I'm not sure.
Good evening and welcome back to Sportszone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Freeman, and it's finally time to take a look at some NCAA basketball. And here with me is Jalen Alexander and Rohan Srivanasi as we discuss some UNT basketball. But first, we got to take a look back to the American Athletic Conference tournament. Guys, the hype was all around the women going into the American Athletic Conference tournament, and then they lose in their first round to Rice. Rohan, what went wrong?
I mean, they typically kind of went back and forth. If you really look at the team stats, they kind of played well in an overall game. Dominique Ennis from the other team hit a big shot going to the locker room and then started out great in the third quarter. So they never really looked back from there. And on that last possession also kind of a little bit.
And Jalen?
Yeah, I mean, the Mean Green had 19 turnovers as a team. And whenever you're that sloppy with the ball, you really can't expect to win. And we were 5 from 12 from the free throw line. And also, I think Rice had 11 offensive rebounds too. So whenever you're letting up that many rebounds on the defensive side, that just shouldn't happen. It was just a sloppy game on that side of the ball.
Right. And Rohan, I know you already pointed at a couple of the players for Rice, but who did you think played well for UNT despite their loss?
I think it was Tamisha Lampkin. I really think so. She had around 14 points with 10 rebounds. A really great double-double in my opinion. She really stepped up.
Right.
I feel the same way. Her 12th double-double of the season, and Dione Robinson with 15 points. I thought she played good.
Yeah, and for Rice, I mean, they ended up winning the whole tournament. They may have been better than I thought. I definitely didn't see them winning conference. I thought, if UNT lost, it probably would have gone to UAB. They looked like the second-best team in the conference. So, guys, how do you think Rice will do in the big dance?
I mean, I think that it'll be fine. I mean, they played well against us, which means they'll probably play well against any other team in the conference. I think Destiny Jackson will play really well for this team. Got to think in the UNT game, she has 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, not to mention 7 steals. She did insane on the defensive side. I think she does the same thing in the tournament.
And Rohan, what about you? How do you think Rice will do?
Yeah, as he said, Destiny Jackson had 16 points the last time, and if you can beat UNT, you got a good chance with literally anybody because the UNT women's basketball team is legit.
Right, and we don't have to be too sad about the loss in the American Athletic Tournament because the women will be playing in the WBIT. I believe that game is either going on right now or will be on in about 20 minutes. So, guys, how is this game going to go between TCU and UNT?
I'm thinking it might be a bit scary, y'all. I mean, Sedona Prince, who is 6'7", by the way, Madison Connor have just been really good for this squad, both averaging 20 points and 19 points per game this season. I think it might be a bit scary. We got to not forget, this team started off 14-0 before all the injuries happened, and they've won 5 out of their last 7.
And they had to recruit from their walk-on.
they had to do that whole walk-on. They posted about it. I mean, I know y'all saw it, so I think it might be a bit scary. I don't know.
Rohan, your thoughts?
I kind of feel the same way. I would really look for us to get out to a quick start because they do have a record of 20-11. I really do like that, but 23-8 is better than 20-11. So I really like our chances in this game.
Right. This game to me is definitely just battle of the bigs. Tamisha Lampkin's gonna have to step up. Sedona Prince, she played at Oregon, which is when she was there was one of the top-rated women's program. How many points do you think Sedona Prince is gonna have?
She might have 25 to 30, 35, 40, maybe 50. But I think Tamisha Lampkin, I think we have a good chance to stop her. Hopefully we come out with the dub, though.
Right. And Rohan?
Yeah, I really think, I mean, maybe not 40, but I mean, 25 is a pretty good number. I take the over on 20. Yeah, we really got a good chance here.
Yeah, I think it'll be a battle. I mean, both teams are 30 minutes away from each other, so it may feel like a home game for both teams. I mean, it may be a pretty even Coliseum over there at TCU. But moving on to the men's side in the American Athletic Tournament, they didn't do so well. They won their first game, but then they took the loss to FAU. What went wrong for the men in that game?
I think it necessarily just stemmed after the converted and one. Then whenever Ruben Jones had fouled out. And it's just the FAU won all the 50-50 balls, and that's what it's about. You got to play physical in men's basketball. And I feel like FAU is just the more experienced team. They went to the Final Four last year. They basically came back with all of their players, even their coach too. So I just think it was just a well-plotted out game by, FAU.
And Rohan, how do you think the Mean Green lost this game?
I mean, if you really look at it, it was a pretty close game, pretty neck and neck. But honestly, getting out-rebounded on the offense and defensive end has been like a story like for all of the games, and size matters. Whenever that ball goes up in the air, we got to come down and we got to get it because that's a problem, a really big problem.
Right. And then, this would have been our third matchup against FAU. We've lost the first one, close game. Second one, also a close game. So, guys, did this third game go the way you thought it was? Because it definitely was not third time's the charm.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought too. I thought we were going to come out with this game, and I was like, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, Mackenzie,
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way we just don't come out with the win in this one, but I was proved wrong. We ended up losing this game, and I was really disappointed.
What about you, Rohan?
I mean, I kind of thought it went the way it would. I mean, not necessarily in terms of the result, but Jason Edwards, once again, with 26 points. As usual, he has to lead the way. He also grabbed 4 boards, which I really like. But again, it's about offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, and whenever you're out-rebounded on both of those statistical ends, you're not really going to win many games.
Right, and then FAU, they beat us, and then in the next round, they lose to Temple. How did that happen, Jalen?
Bro, I just got to say.
It's madness.
It was such madness. And Temple's, I mean, I get they had their run, and I definitely get that they've won those games, those 4, 5, 6 games by like 1 possession. But then they go and get beat by UAB by like 25.
Right.
And it's just like, that really could have been UNT. And it was just like, I mean, it is March. It's madness. So anything can happen in this month.
And Rohan, what did you think about FAU losing to Temple?
I mean, Honestly, like I didn't expect it, but what was it, 4 wins in 4 days? That's absolutely crazy. Whether it was a one-possession game or not, I do agree with you, but it also shows about their clutchness. It also shows about whenever that pressure comes, they're hitting shots, they're playing good defense, so I really think it's impressive because they're actually the underdog in like every single game.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then the men, just like the women, are continuing to dance, so to speak, as they're in the NIT. They just beat LSU 84-77. Jalen, what were your thoughts on that performance?
I thought it was a pretty good performance. I'm just hoping we take this into the next week. And I know there's a few of our guys who aren't as healthy. I know you got Jones, Buzz, CJ Nolan, Aaron Jones. I'm just hoping that we can kind of take this moment. We already beat a Power 5 school. We won the NIT last year. Show them that y'all are real champions. Go back to back and go win this thing.
Right, and speaking of CJ Nolan, he had a great game. He scored 21 points, very efficient, 7 of 10 from the field, and I believe 3 of 4 from the three-point line. So, guys, I have to ask you, who was your MVP that game? I'm taking CJ Nolan. Rohan, what about you?
I completely agree with you. I mean, it's hard to pick anybody else, right, whenever he's going off like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
I feel the same way. I remember whenever CJ Nolan transferred here, I was like, this guy is that guy. And he showed it throughout this game in the tournament, and I'm hoping he does throughout the whole rest of the tournament too.
Right. And I know that this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the NIT or the conference tournament, but had CJ Nolan been healthy, because there was a stretch where him and Reuben Jones both missed, I believe, 3 or 4 games. Do you think in those games, had he been there, those 3 to 5 point losses could have been converted into wins?
I think so. I mean, you just got to think how you have these guys, offensive scorers, and you just said CJ coming back scoring 21 points, very efficient, 3 for 4 from the 3. I think if we would have had him just going crazy on the offense, I think it would have been a different result. Again, it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
And Rohan, what about you?
I mean, close games, you would expect him to at least take the cover up, right? If it's like a 5-point game. I understand it takes the ball away from other players, but he's an impact player, and no doubt it would have made a big difference, actually. Maybe even 2 wins.
Right.
Even if it's 2 wins, it makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah, that would have impacted our seeding a lot, especially you look at where SMU was and where UAB was. We could have passed them had we had 2 more wins. So very quickly, how do you think UAB will do in the tournament?
I think they're going to do really good. I mean, Vasquez Alejandro is legit, and I've seen him 2 times, so I think we're good.
And Rohan?
Yeah, Vasquez actually really balled out in that final game. I do expect him to make some noise, but really not really expecting anything, to be honest with you. It is March Madness, so anything can happen.
Right, and just like what Rohan said, anything can happen, and March Madness is going on right now. So when we come back, we'll talk about the biggest tournament of the year.
I'm so tired. I feel ugly. I'm not okay. I didn't know UNT had counseling services. Maybe I should check it out. This looks like the place.
There's no harm in wanting to have fun while in college, but it's easy to lose track of how much you've had. Apps like Drink Control and Alkadroid can help keep track of your consumption and blood alcohol levels. If you or someone else does drink too much, the signs of alcohol poisoning are as follows: pale skin, vomiting, confusion, low body temperatures, irregular breathing, blacking out, and is hard to wake up or cannot be woken up.
Dude, are you okay? Hey, what's wrong? Wake up.
It's an exciting time of year, but it's important to be responsible. If you suspect someone is suffering from alcohol poisoning, get help immediately. You will not get in trouble for seeking help if you are underage. For more info and resources, go to UNT's Division of Student Affairs.
Welcome back to Sports Zone. I'm here to talk about March Madness here with Matthew Wagner and Jalen Bullock. Guys, I don't know about you guys, but this is like my favorite time of the year. Screw the Super Bowl. It's March Madness. What's your thoughts?
No, I love it. It's always a great thing. I wish more sports would implement stuff like this, right? It's so much fun to be able to see upsets and, tight games. I cannot wait to see how this tournament. I know it's already gotten underway already.
And Jalen?
March Madness is the one time of the year where the regular season really doesn't matter. If you get into March Madness, you can make some noise. Already today, we've seen a lot of teams, we'll go into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a minute.
But it's just a great time.
So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. What upsets are you guys expecting in this tournament? Matt?
Yeah, no, I think Samford has a chance to upset the Jayhawks. Obviously, with Kevin McCullough Jr. being out, obviously that's a tough loss for them. But obviously, I know who I think is gonna. I think Purdue is gonna choke again. Now they have like the pass against UNT, and they lost last year to Farley Dickinson, 58-63. In the first round, the biggest upset in the NCAA tournament up to that point. I think that's another choke job for them coming up.
Yeah. And Jalen, what about you? What team is on your upset alert radar?
So I think James Madison can make a lot of noise. Let's talk about James Madison as a program to begin with. Had a great football season, had a great basketball season, but I just feel like they are set, up for success. I feel like Wisconsin is not going to be able to play against the style of play that JMU plays. But my team for the tournament is New Mexico. New Mexico, they remind me a lot of the Nevada teams with the Martin twins a couple of years ago. They're just hoopers. They're straight up dogs on that team with, Jalen House, of course, Eddie House's son, and another, player in Jamal Mashburn, also with an NBA father. Those guards are just hoopers, and I feel like they're really going to shine in this tournament.
Right, and usually there's about a 10 to 13 seed that'll make a lot of noise. So this year, I'm taking Drake. I think this team, they win for sure in the first round. I definitely can see them beating Washington State. They've got Tucker DeVries. This kid is averaging 21.8 points per game. This team scores 80 points per game. Washington 74. So I do think it'll be a good game, but I think Drake will get the win. And guys, moving on, this kind of goes with our upsets, maybe teams that shouldn't have been where they are. Who do y'all think is overrated in the tournament? Jalen, I'll start with you.
So I'll start with some Blue Bloods. Of course, Kentucky's always overrated. They have talented freshmen every year. But this is a team that since January 13th has surrendered 89 points 9 times.
Yeah.
They are a team that always, during the regular season, they just got to get over that next step. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do it.
No, yeah, I actually have Wisconsin losing because UNT beat them last year. It was a close game, and any team I think that gets beat by UNT probably shouldn't be in the March Madness. Yes, they had a good regular
Unless
season.
you're Purdue, and
of course,
there's some stuff going on.
Of course, but I don't think Wisconsin has it. I haven't seen a lot of they've had a lot of close games. I don't know how much more longer that train can keep rolling on the tracks.
My overrated team, and I hate to admit this because they are in our conference, but FAU should not be an 8 seed. I was expecting them to be, maybe a 10, 11, maybe even 12 seed. Look at UAB. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that won the conference and were still ranked lower than FAU. And typically 8 seeds have an average ranking of about 40.2, and FAU has a ranking of 52. Yeah. So FAU definitely is overrated in my opinion, and they're not going to the Final Four like they did last season. No. And then with that being said, who do y'all think got snubbed from the tournament?
Man, I'm going to say this, and I think one team that got snubbed was Indiana State. Record of 28-6. They went 15-5 away from home. It's the most victories since reaching its national championship in '79, which Larry Bird was on that team when they won that. And they're left out despite a net ranking higher at 29 over St. John's, who made and to me that's and we tried to heard different explanations from the NCAA. We haven't heard a good one yet. So I just think they got snubbed. I think they should be playing right now. They're still in the NIT, but still, I think they should be playing in March Madness.
I like SEC basketball, and I think they have 8 teams in there. Yeah. They could have replaced Indiana State, or they could have replaced Texas A&M with Indiana State. I mean, they're one of the teams I thought would be snubbed. What about you?
I'm on that wagon of Indiana State, too. Just another one of those teams that fall victim to Selection Sunday, which has been, the name of the game this year so far.
Right. Indiana State, I'm glad y'all mentioned them. But my, true snub, I got to go Pitt. If FAU was in the tournament and took a loss to a team like Temple and Pitt, who went 4-6 in Quad 1, not the best record, but still beat Duke, beat NC State twice, all teams that are in this tournament, and then had all winning records in all the other quadrants, Pitt probably was the biggest snub of the year. Would you say that?
No,
Matt?
yeah, I would agree. It comes back to that whole thing where, it's kind of like what we saw in the football season, right? Where who's going to get into the Final Four? And teams were snubbed. Fan bases are not going to. So there's no, obviously you can't please everybody, but I think you would agree that that was a big snub for them.
Right. And out of the teams in this tournament, who are y'all most excited to watch?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to go, Houston. I'm excited to see Houston play because, listen, I actually have
no choke. You don't think they're gonna choke?
I actually have them going all the way. I know we'll get to that later, but that brings me back to those days. Back when Clyde Drexler was there. Hakeem, Phi Slamma Jamma. That team is kind of comparable to back then, right now. And I think they're obviously that's the best thing about March Madness is there's chokes, there's upsets, but I think this team has the most complete, well-rounded team of the tournament.
I really like that take. I feel like they're the best defensive team in the country. I'm going to go, personally, Arizona. I really like what they have on paper. Even had a great win today. Kylan Boswell played well. And just a great team win. Of course, at the end of the regular season, they had that loss against USC and then losing in the semifinals to Oregon. But Oregon had a fantastic opening game today. Jermaine Colson had 40 points.
Yeah.
Nafali Dante had 23. So that's even a quality loss. But I just really, really like Arizona's chance to make it far. I have them going all the way to the Final Four.
That's awesome, dude.
Right. And, I've got to stick with my team. I'm going to go with the Tennessee Vols. I mean, you've got Dalton Knecht, who literally has just been insane this year, and I believe he won SEC Player of the Year. You've got Zakai Ziegler, who won Defensive Player of the Year, and then you've got guys like Santiago Vescovi, who really is a threat at the three. This team, really fun to watch, a great defensive team, and if they can turn on their offense and have a game where Vescovi goes off, it's some pretty exciting basketball. And speaking of exciting basketball, we're going to talk about the Final Four. How many number one seeds do you think will make it to the Final Four, Mr. Houston?
I actually only have Houston going all the way to the Final Four.
Okay.
Because here's why. They have 7 players averaging over 5 points. LJ Cryer leading that with 15.3 points per game. And they kill you in free throws. They have a 69% chance on free throws, and that's something that teams can battle back from if they're down. The free throws make a big difference in basketball.
And Jalen, what about you? How many number one seeds do you have?
I think Houston and UConn are going to get there comfortably. I think Purdue, like many, are going to choke. I feel like they're going to step up. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they could be a third. But I think that 14 for sure will be Arizona. But the Elite 8 matchup between New Mexico is going to feed families, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be the game of the tournament. Y'all heard it here first. And I stand by that.
Let them cook.
I, like you, Matt, I only have one team. I'm going to go UConn. I mean, UConn has looked like the most comfortable and best team in men's basketball this year. You've got Purdue, who had some pretty big losses. They didn't even win the Big Ten, and the Big Ten was not that great this year. So they were upset before the tournament even happened, and I can see them losing, as early as the Sweet 16.
Yes.
And then Houston and UNC. UNC, they're going to have a tough matchup. I believe they're on Arizona's side of the bracket.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I see them falling off. They could even fall off to, I believe, Alabama because they're on the same side. So, yeah, I'm definitely going with UConn there. So follow-up to that, who do y'all have winning the championship?
I know Houston. I said Houston will make it to the Final Four. I actually have UNC versus Houston in the Final Two. I do think Houston does take it. I have Houston go all the way this year. So far, my bracket is actually perfect this far. I haven't checked in yet. I'm scared to check in because I feel like it's going to be busted here.
Wait, you had Duquesne?
I did. I actually have Duquesne beating them. Yes, it was awesome. But I don't know. I think Houston has, like I said, they have the most well-rounded team in this tournament. And they, unfortunately, I'm not going to try to bandwagon, but they do have one of the easiest schedules, depending on who they play, who wins for that.
I definitely think Houston is getting to the championship game, but I think that UConn is going back-to-back. I just feel like I just love what they have on both sides of the ball. Their last stretch of 10 games have just been commanding basketball. Even when there was a moment when they looked, inconsistent, the next 5 games, it's like, okay, this is the best team in the country, and it's not by a close margin. I think Houston is so defensively sound, but UConn just really can't. Right,
I definitely am going to take UConn as well. And speaking of the madness, when we come back, we'll take a look at all the madness that's been going on with NFL and free agency.
Why should you join Talons?
We are very welcoming to people who may be a little bit hesitant. There's people currently right now in our organization who are in leadership positions who were hesitant before to join, and they found out that they just loved the organization and wanted to be a bigger part of it. They post about the football games, everything they're doing, all their events that they host.
What's the best part about Talons?
I would say meeting new people, because the university, while it's a kind of small campus in terms of like physical land, there's a ton of people here. And so getting to meet all these people who have so much school spirit and love for this university and wants to spread that to other people, it's kind of like a little miniature family that we're in.
What's wrong? Are you stuck in your paper?
Pretty much. I haven't written anything in like an hour.
Why don't you check out the Writing Center at UNT?
Well, how do I meet up with them?
All you have to do to make an appointment is visit the Writing Center's website and either call the number or email writingcenter@unt.edu. The appointment is 30 minutes long, and the trained tutors will be able to help with brainstorming, correcting grammar, ensuring clarity, and a wide range of services. They also do walk-in appointments.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna check them out.
So, when's this paper due?
30 minutes.
For more information, visit the UNT Writing Center's website.
Yeah, it's 6 pages.
Welcome back to Sportszone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Freeman, and we're here to talk about some NFL movements because it's been just crazy across the board. And here to talk about those trades with me is Anthony Council and John Phillips. Guys, there's been a lot. So just overall, what are your thoughts on how crazy the NFL free agency has been?
Hey, bring me my money. That's all I got to say. That's really all you've been seeing. And you got to give credit for what creditors do. I mean, Saquon, he talked about the running backs last year, and it was a whole controversy at one point last season. And now a lot of these running backs are getting their money and getting new places now.
Right, and John, your thoughts?
Yeah, that cap jump before the free agency really helped. I mean, players are getting huge contracts now, and whenever you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins available in free agency, that free agency is going to be big because he is a top 10 quarterback, and if he moves teams, that's a big move.
Right, and within all this craziness, there's, of course, been some big moves. You got to talk about the Steelers getting Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, the Ravens, and how crazy they're going to look. So, guys, in your opinion, Anthony, what was the best move so far?
So, for me, I mean, I got three. So,
All right.
One, Kirk Cousins. Definitely for him going to Atlanta and playing there, that's huge. Definitely the Steelers, of course. But I got to say, you got to look at the Titans. The Titans look really, really good. I mean, they got Ridley for 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. You got Tony Pollard from the Cowboys, D-Hop, and Will Levis. I mean, they're building around their young quarterback, which is really what you want,
right,
especially after losing Derrick Henry to the Ravens.
Yeah, and John?
I mean, speaking of building around your young quarterback, my Chicago Bears picking up Keenan Allen, picking up Coleman Shelton to start at center. It's the perfect offseason for Caleb Williams coming to the Chicago Bears, and I've been in heaven every second of it.
Is it though? I mean, look. I hear you. I hear you. Look, the Bears look good. The Bears look good on offense, okay? They look good on defense too, but it's like the Bears with Justin Fields, I mean, they messed a lot of things up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's hope that the Bears have something for them.
I mean, it's looking up. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
I hope.
Okay.
I mean, you know.
You're right.
I mean, I do think the Steelers were just absolutely smart, though, getting Justin Fields for basically nothing. I mean, so you've got a guy who, Russell Wilson, he's going to probably get hurt at some point in the season just because, you know, he's an older quarterback in the league. And then, boom, Justin Fields comes in with the talent that he has surrounding him. It's going to be a battle in that division.
I don't know if I agree. I don't want to say Justin Fields is bad, but he's bad. I mean, we've seen this guy for 3 years. Sure, Bears did him zero favors. I will 100% say that. But usually if there's a star quarterback in the league, they show more than Justin Fields has shown. He showed barely anything. He had like 5 good games as a Bear ever. He had 5 games above 250 passing yards. That is not a star quarterback.
Wait. So let me ask you this question. Kenny Pickett with the Bears, Justin Fields with the Steelers, who's putting up better numbers?
Justin Fields. But Kenny Pickett is also a bad quarterback. I mean, these are bad quarterbacks.
Justin Fields over Kenny Pickett, though.
Steelers system.
I don't know if he will. Will he even play? Because like Russ will probably get hurt for a couple games, but I don't know. Fields may get like 4 games started.
Okay.
Worst comes to worst, he sits behind Russell Wilson for about 2 years, though.
Yeah,
exactly. And then he gets to play.
Yeah.
And that's not a worst case scenario.
I mean,
that's best case scenario.
At that point, you have him in the league for 5-6 years without showing anything yet. At that point, his career's dead. I mean, it's dead in the water. There's no way he comes back from that.
At least he's getting mentorship from a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
A Super Bowl winning quarterback that everyone hates. I mean, every single former teammate of Russell Wilson says he's the worst guy ever. They say, oh, this guy's so lame. He's so corny. Broncos country, let's ride. He's a corny quarterback. I don't know if he's a great mentor. I mean, everyone hates him.
Let's just see what happens.
Let's
just see what happens, okay?
I agree.
Oh, my God.
Justin Fields and the Steelers. I thought it was good for the Steelers, but John has some.
It's not good for John. It's not good for John.
It's good
the Steelers getting Russell Wilson and Justin Fields is bad.
John is the only person in the United States who thinks that was a bad move.
If I'm right, I'm right.
Well, okay. Now we've got to look local. The Cowboys, they were kind of stagnant. They've made a couple of pickups now. Why do you think the Cowboys were so stagnant, Anthony?
Because they're all in. They're all in, guys. They're all in for nothing. They've lost everything. You got Tony Pollard going to the Titans, which is great. That's awesome. You guys don't have a running game. Here's the thing. This draft class is a very good draft class, but it's good for quarterbacks, not for running backs. You got to look at it.
Even wide receivers.
Right, exactly. I mean, from running backs, you have the running back who is from Texas, the running back who's from Michigan. Two very good running backs. But you guys got to fix the running game. You just lost a defensive tackle. You got to fix your O-line. Here's what I've been hearing. The Cowboys, and this could be a hot take, the Cowboys may not make the playoffs this year or next year. And you got to think, Dak is on a contract year this year.
Yeah.
If they don't do anything, Dak is gone.
Yeah. John, what about you? Why do you think the Cowboys have been relatively stagnant?
I think it's kind of the narratives around them. They had a bad year last year. They got crushed in the playoffs. I think there's not a lot of hype around the Cowboys right now, and free agents don't really want to go there. And at the positions of need, like running back, you mentioned, one of the biggest positions of need they have, the market is crazy expensive, and I don't know if they wanted to get involved in that. They might want to wait for the draft, you know?
Derrick Henry admitted he wanted to come to Dallas and play for the Cowboys.
I did not see that. That is crazy.
Why do you think the front office didn't try to pick him up? Cap space.
Oh, Dak Prescott. That contract is huge. His contract is ginormous. I think that's the main reason why that he couldn't or they didn't call him. Like, the Cowboys didn't even call him.
Yeah. They didn't even look at Derrick Henry.
At all. Like no one. I'm like, who are you guys looking at? Like, literally have not gotten anybody.
Yeah, it's negligence to have Jerry Jones still involved with the Cowboys' decisions on a day-to-day basis. It is crazy.
And Stephen Jones.
Stephen Jones is a little bit more justifiable than Jerry Jones because he's so old now, but it is crazy to have them so involved in the decision-making for the Cowboys.
But look. There's no expectations.
Yeah.
No expectations at all for the Cowboys.
Maybe it'll change something. Maybe this is their year.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There's no expectations for the Cowboys. So
yeah, the bar is set here for the Cowboys this season. I think their window with Dak has dwindled, and I think we'll see him probably leave at the end of his contract.
Maybe some Trey Lance this year.
Maybe.
Hey,
Maybe.
I'm not mad about it.
I wouldn't be mad about seeing Trey Lance either.
It's not Justin Fields.
It's better.
Well, moving on very quickly, guys. How do you think all of these moves will affect the draft? I mean, you mentioned Caleb Williams. You've mentioned the running backs and what the Cowboys are going to do. So what impact did you think the free agency had?
I think the fact that we saw the running back market explode, and I think that is because of the draft, because running back, it has some strong people at the top, but it's not as strong as the quarterback class, the wide receiver class. I mean, let's be honest. So I think a lot of those teams wanted to wait on those other positions and pay running backs in free agency.
Yeah, and I would say definitely for some of the teams that don't have a lot of help, like especially, I mean, you looked at the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they took away, Kirk Cousins, and now they could possibly get a quarterback. So I think it's going to really help a lot in the draft for all these teams.
Right. We'll have to see what happens in April when the draft comes around. But that does it here tonight on Sportszone. Be sure to go follow our socials for some more behind-the-scenes content and keep those TVs on as NTTV's nightly news starts here in just a couple of minutes.